Hello to all my viewers. In this video, I am going to particularly talk about conditional indirect effect and conditional direct effect. When you have an independent variable affecting the dependent variable and there is a moderator in between. In my previous video, I have already discussed what is mediation and moderation analysis. Along with that, I have also explained what is moderated mediation. So this is conditional direct effect. Conditional direct effect means the effect of this moderator on the relationship, on the direct relationship between independent variable and the dependent variable, right? That is why it is known as conditional direct effect. Now, sometimes it is seen that the path from independent variable to the dependent variable is significant, but after the introduction of moderator it becomes insignificant. Why does it happen so? It happens because it is heavily impacted by multicollinearity. How come multicollinearity? Because if you see closely, how do we calculate the interaction effect for determining the moderator effect? The interaction effect is calculated just like multiple linear regression. So in place of one arrow pointing towards dependent variable, to assess the effect of moderator, now you have one independent variable affecting dependent variable, one moderator affecting dependent variable. This is the statistical diagram which I am trying to show you, and one interaction term IV into moderator, independent variable into moderator affecting the dependent variable. So now you have three arrows pointing towards your dependent variable. Moderation effect becomes significant, this effect becomes significant, but this effect becomes insignificant. Now, how will you address this? Because now it shows there is no direct effect, but moderation effect is significant. Isn't it surprising? So, for dealing with these situations, Professor Andrew Hayes, who invented process macro, says that there is conditional effect. You don't just test the effect of independent variable on the dependent variable on a single level of moderator, rather than you test the effect of the moderator at low level, at mean level or average level, and high level of moderator. Low here means -1 standard deviation, means at the standard deviation, and high means +1 standard deviation. Why we take these values? Because in smart PLS, when you are working in smart PLS, all the values are standardized by the software itself. So whatever path coefficients you are getting, they are already standardized, and the standardized values have a mean of 0 and standard deviation of 1. Remember, the standardized values have a mean of 0 and standard deviation of 1. So you assess the effect of the moderator on its low value, on its mean value, and on its high value. So when you will test this through the slope analysis, you will come to know that at high levels or at some other level this becomes significant. You found that the direct effect also became significant. That is how you can justify the effect of moderator on this direct relationship. Now let us talk about conditional indirect effect. Now in case of a moderated mediation, you have an independent variable, you have a mediator, and you have the dependent variable. So in presence of the mediator, you found that this is a case of complementary mediation, wherein direct and indirect effect both are significant. So the indirect effect A multiplied by B is significant, and the direct effect C is also significant. You came to find out this. How you find out this? I have explained in my previous videos what is the logic behind it, to understand conceptually what do you mean by mediation, moderation and moderated mediation. Now, this is a complementary mediation or partial mediation case. What difference occurs in case you introduce a moderator? So in case you introduce a moderator on this path B, now sometimes what happens is this path B becomes insignificant. So when path B becomes insignificant, the logic of your mediation also fails, because if B becomes insignificant, the multiplicative effect of A into B also becomes insignificant, right? So then there is no mediation. But you see on the introduction of moderator that this path is significant. The moderator path to the mediation way is significant. How will you explain this situation? So, as I told you before, Professor Andrew Hayes said that you check in this effect of the moderator on the moderator's low level, medium level and high level to find out whether this path B becomes significant or not. Say for an instance, on a high level of the moderator, path B became significant. How do you get to know this? You get to know this through conditional indirect effect, which is recently introduced in Smart PLS 4. Therein you have the high value as +1 standard deviation, average value at standard deviation and low value at -1 standard deviation. So you come to know that at what level of moderator this path becomes significant. So how does this path B become insignificant on introduction of the moderator in the model? Although previously the indirect effect was significant and the direct effect C was also significant. Indirect effect A multiplied by B and direct effect C was significant when we did not introduce the moderator. On introduction of the moderator in the model, what happens? This actually becomes a case of multiple linear regression, wherein the dependent variable is affected by mediator, is affected by moderator and is also affected by the interaction term of mediator multiplied by moderator. So now dependent variable is affected by 3 variables, and you see here that there is high amount of multicollinearity between mediator and the interaction term. So interaction term and mediator have high amount of correlation between them. So this correlation leads to one of the path becomes insignificant. So in this case, this path becomes insignificant and this path becomes significant. In this case, Professor Andrew Hayes advises to check the path effect of mediator on the dependent variable path B at low, medium and high levels of the moderator. How you get to see these results? Recently Smart PLS 4 has introduced conditional indirect effects in the results, wherein you can check these 3 values and determine the effect of the moderator, which is known as conditional indirect effect in moderated mediation. I hope this video was quite informative and useful for you, and you will definitely share it with your friends and faculty colleagues. Thanks a lot.